talk about this just generally, because as just a regular citizen, it's kind of confusing to me. So there's $148 million that you're supposed to pay. Can you go on a payment plan? What does that look like if you have to pay that out?
Well, typically a creditor will be very aggressive and record liens against any real property you have, garnish any wages you have. If he's got a podcast and he gets advertising revenue, they'll try to get at that money. Typically, unless there's a settlement agreement, plaintiff's attorneys don't work on payment plans.
Got it. And he's facing other legal troubles over his actions regarding the 2020 election. Will this verdict impact those future legal battles?
Well, yeah, in two ways. First of all, can you imagine trying to hire a lawyer when you don't have any money and you have a big judgment against you? I can't imagine any lawyer is going to be lining up to represent him in the criminal and civil cases he's facing. So that's one way. And then the second way is, yeah, the trier of fact will learn about this verdict, and it will impact, it'll be a lens in which they view the current charges, whether it's the criminal charges or civil charges that he's facing.
And Jeff, can you talk to us about what's happening next when it comes to appeals or anything like that?
Well, first step is they have an opportunity, these lawyers for Giuliani, to ask the trial judge to act as a buffer between the jury and the judgment and try to reduce the dollar amount. So that'll be their first pitch to the trial judge. The trial judge will then enter judgment, and then there will be an appeal. And most states and jurisdictions, and I believe Washington, D.C. is the same, requires that a party post a bond to stay execution on appeal, meaning Mr. Giuliani would have to come up with over $100 million in assets to satisfy a surety or an insurance company to post a bond for him so that the appeal can proceed without any seizing of his assets. And then once the appeal is done, and I expect Mr. Giuliani will lose this appeal, he'll move on to the bankruptcy phase where he'll try to relitigate the question of whether there was a willful and malicious injury. The jury's finding of punitive damages pretty much forecloses that question, but I expect Mr. Giuliani to file for bankruptcy. And then from there, it'll be the hide-and-seek phase where Mr. Giuliani hides assets and the creditor's attorneys try to find him.
Did his statements outside of the courthouse that you and I have touched on multiple times now, him saying, of course I was right, not showing remorse, will that affect the appeals phase?
I don't think it'll affect the appeal one bit. It will affect the bankruptcy, because when the bankruptcy court is looking at whether this was more like a negligent or reckless statement, or was it an intentional and willful injury to these two women, I think that statement on the courthouse steps will come back to haunt Mr. Giuliani.